Episode number 2. They let us back.
Right. I'm glad you got your Chippendale thing situated.
Yeah,
You was,
listen.
you was Superman in it, but I'm glad you got your Chippendale together.
You know what? Drop it in the comments. What do you think? Top button, or I guess this isn't even the top button. This second button, I can't even undo it now, so it's gonna stay. Do you like the button open or close? I don't know how you say. I don't. Okay, we're just gonna move on.
Get you an ascot. There it is. Boom. Hey everybody! In the comments, shoot us your favorite recommendations for ascots, so that way Harvey over here can be fresh.
Don't do that.
Before
Don't do that. But you wanted to touch on something from our first episode. We had talked about the NAR settlement and how it affects buyers and sellers and negotiating fees. And I know you wanted to touch on something from the last episode.
Yeah, ironically, I was having a conversation. This was recently, maybe about a week ago, with a really, really good friend from high school. Shout out to Chicago, my hometown. Go Bears. Hopefully Caleb Williams works out for us. But
you're welcome, by the way. From LA, big USC fan. You're welcome.
Thanks, I guess.
Well, you have to draft him first, but you probably will. But
really, we should be thanking Carolina for that number 1 draft pick. But I know we chatted a little bit about transparency, and as I was having a conversation with one of my best friends, him and his new bride, they're both selling their current residences to purchase a new residence together, and he was asking me some questions, and he had some frustration around this 6% commission. And his thought process was like, hey, we're selling 2 properties. This agent's representing us on 2 properties and might be representing us on the property that we're ultimately going to buy. And he just wanted some transparency around like what the heck he was paying for. And maybe if there was a way to negotiate a lower percentage, since especially considering this particular agent might be up for 2, maybe even three sales. So I think more than anything is going to be incumbent upon me, you, and everybody in our industry to really be able to articulate our value and be transparent, to be able to show a prospective customer, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Hey, in order to market your home, it's going to cost me fill in the blank. I need to do this thing, this thing, this thing, so that way they can really see your value.
Yeah, and I think that it does touch on a little bit of what we talked about in the last episode, and obviously we don't want to kind of hang on this topic, but again, I think it does really do reinforce that agents will need to show their value. Period. You need to show what you bring to the table, and in the spirit of transparency, again, if it's a tiered system or, if you have a set fee, however you run your business, it's going to be very, very important for you to have that very, open and honest, and for some very uncomfortable conversation. But what's that saying? Closed mouths don't get fed.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So, but in the spirit of transparency,
Okay.
Let's talk about closing costs and what all goes into it, because, I think that that's something that your average buyer, they see the asking price, right? And they go, great, I've approved for $400,000. The home is $400,000. I got myself the money to buy a home, and no, not quite. So yeah, right. Talk to us a little bit about closing costs.
Sure. And I do get quite a few customers on that $400,000 house. They're like, okay. And they're like, okay, I'm a first-time home buyer. It's 3% down. I got my $12,000. So I have to politely remind them, like, okay, you don't quite have it all. But to give you a kind of a breakdown of what the closing costs are, which on average are about 3% of whatever the purchase price are. And if we were to itemize out the list, some of the major things includes your appraisal. And that appraisal gives us, the market is dictating what the value of the home is. We wouldn't want you to.
What's like an average cost for an appraisal? Because I think people just think, oh, I got to get an appraisal, but like dollars and cents wise, what does that mean to their budget?
Most appraisals are anywhere between $550 to $650.
And then if you need to get that expedited, let's say you're in a multiple offer situation and you have like 1 day due diligence, how much now is that?
Oh, you mean that deal we did where it was a 14-day close and we needed to get the appraisal back in 5 days? Yes. On a rush appraisal, you could be looking at anywhere between, on the low end, maybe between $750 and about $900 if you want them to get the appraisal back in Literally 5 days or less.
And keep in mind, I mean, that's typically an out-of-pocket expense. Some will get it rolled into their their costs at closing. Some will just pay, put on their credit card. But
Most of the time, it's going to be out of pocket
Yeah.
because ultimately we need that appraisal back in order to complete your approval. So
Correct.
that appraisal is coming in prior to closing. So what happens when you get that initial loan estimate that breaks down all the costs, you then pay for the appraisal. And then when you get your closing disclosure, which is at least 3 days prior to closing, will show that you already paid it. So you don't double pay it. It's kind of just some accounting,
it's just a credit on the balance sheet,
Correct.
on your closing statement. Yeah. Okay. So appraisal. What else is a part of the official cost to close?
Got your appraisal. Typically there might be some processing and underwriting fees, which is a lender fee. One of the more important things on there is going to be your title report, especially if we're closing a deal here in Georgia. Georgia is an attorney state. So an attorney is sort of presiding over the closing. So there are some fees associated with the attorney service. In addition to that, they do what's called a title report. The best example I could give you is, we've all seen those Carfax commercials. We're running a report on the house to make sure that the person that's selling you the house can in fact sell you the house. We're checking to make sure there aren't any liens on the house, mechanics liens or tax liens, or we want to make sure that there aren't any liens. And they also insure it. So if there is an issue, you can then go back to the attorney's office and say that you had title insurance. I'll give you a random example. I had a client about a year ago, bought over on the west side, and they had like a $600 water bill. And I was like, did you go to the mall and just wash all the clothes in the mall?
Like literally, did you wash all the clothes in the county?
Correct.
Wow.
So they were able to reach out to the closing attorney, and they were able to get it figured out because obviously they didn't run up a $500 water bill in a month.
But if they did, I mean, kudos to you, because that takes some work. Wow.
I'm sure. So you got your attorney fees.
Aquaman lives there. It's fine. $600 water bill. $600 a month.
Not Aquaman. I love it. Or maybe Iceman from X-Men. Maybe, perhaps. But
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Wow.
Lives in Atlanta now.
This guy. So you got your appraisal, you have your title, you got the attorney fees. Obviously, there are some state taxes on there. There are some recording fees as well, because what happens when I buy the house from you or whatever the case is, that the county record needs to be updated accordingly. Right. And that's a general idea of the costs associated with that.
Yeah. So closing costs, again, is a bundle of fees.
Yes.
Anywhere between, you said, I typically say 3 to 4% of the sell price. Fair to say that that's a good range for a prospective buyer when they're trying to set their budget. That's about a good range.
Definitely. And then what happens when we are pre-approving the buyer and I tell them their max approval amount is fill in the blank. And then we can also talk about if your max approval and your budget are not one and the same, because just because I can approve you for $800,000 does not necessarily mean you should get an $800,000 house. But if you say, hey, Bryant, my budget is $3,000 a month, we can back into what does that look like from a purchase price standpoint? Okay, at that purchase price, here is that monthly payment. Here is the down payment and the cash to get the keys. We can talk about where the interest rates are currently and give you a pretty good idea of about where you would land.
Yeah. Typically, when you're out there ready to buy a home, and you're trying to think about the out of pocket expenses, first and foremost is you're going to have your earnest money. The earnest money deposit, that is your financial gesture of your seriousness of buying a home. I like to say it's really so you have some skin in the game.
Sure.
And it shows the seller that you're serious. Typically 1% of the asking price, or 1% of the seller's price.
That bonds the contract too, right?
Yes, and then that does well. And as far as binding the contract, you just need to have some type of conveyance. So it could be money, it could be, cattle, whatever, but it has to be something. Typically there's some type of transaction that shows, okay, I'm invested in this.
So not a
99.
not a bottle of wine. I can't
I
slide over
mean,
some nice prosecco or something.
well,
Maybe
prosecco, no. Probably not prosecco, but if it was
Ace of
like,
Spades.
well, probably a little bit more expensive than Ace of Spades. But I like where your head's at. But yeah, no. But I mean, it can be 99.9% of the time. It's some type of U.S. dollars. That's given, again, 1% of the sales price. Typically, you can do more than that. We typically see this in multiple offer situations, where you can give more money as your earnest money deposit. You touched on appraisals. Again, appraisals, they could possibly be put into your loan, or not your loan, but into your cost to close. But typically that's paid out of pocket beforehand. Any type of home inspection. And then if you need any type of specialist to come out, if you go to a home and there's a plumbing problem or an AC problem, you're going to pay out of pocket for that technician to possibly come out and see the home. Outside of that, there's your down payment, and your down payment could be 3.5% if it's a FHA loan. If it's a conventional loan, you're looking at upwards of 10% or more.
If you've not had ownership in a home in the last 3 years, you qualify as a first-time home buyer,
Mm-hmm.
and you can actually put down 3% on a conventional loan.
Oh, okay.
And then if you're not a first-time home buyer, minimum down payment would be 5% on a conventional, that is.
On a conventional, yes. And then, if I don't want to nerd out too much, but when you're thinking about, like, well, could I put down more than 10%? Absolutely. If you want to put down 20% or more, now you can eliminate PMI. We won't get into PMI too much. We only got a few more minutes left on this episode, but because we are talking about the different costs and everything, it's good to let people know that, like, these are things that you typically don't think about, but you need to, because you do have, again, your earnest money, you have your down payment, you have your closing costs, and then, of course, if you saw the last episode, if you haven't, stop what you're doing. Go to the previous episode. It's episode 1. Watch that episode. We talk about the recent NAR settlement, because I say all of that because if you're buying a home, something else to consider on top of everything else is another set budget to pay your agent to help you buy a home. That could be 2% of the home purchase price. It could be 3%. It could be 5%. I mean, I don't know. It's whatever you and your agent agrees to. If it's me that you'd like to work with, find me on Instagram, or shoot me a message or in the comments.
So that buyer brokerage agreement's going to be really important now, huh?
Yes, the buyer broker, that is really going to be gospel.
So if they sign it, y'all go together.
We're going steady. Yes. When you sign that, it's me and you. But I on a serious note, though, the buyer brokerage agreement and the commission agreement, typically, well, I guess not typically, but I know a handful of agents that have had the standard practice of, if you do not sign the buyer brokerage agreement, we're not going to tour houses. I have been operating under the premise of, let's just go see some homes. We'll sit down. If there's one that you like, then, before we put in an offer, we'll sign all the agreements. Clearly, my business practices have changed because it is so much very more important. Well, I mean, it's always been important, but I think especially, and timer there, I'll tell you what that's about in a second. But it is so important, though, especially in today's world, and how we do real estate, because it's an open market, and there are going to be people out there trying to win business at all costs and undercutting your fee, and you need to be constantly showing value for that fee that you're charging. So yeah, BBA and commission agreements are going to be, those are going to be mandatory before anything is done. And I don't think that that's a bad thing.
Makes
Run,
sense. I was,
run a tight ship.
I definitely almost said BBL, but yes, BBAs are definitely going to be.
Well, the goal is if you're selling a home, for some, I would imagine the goal is to sell their home and take the proceeds and maybe go get a BBL. Listen, we don't judge on this podcast. If that's your goal, God bless you.
I was thinking
Maybe your dating life will be better off for it. I don't know.
I was thinking proceeds to, sell or finance a laundromat or get another investment property. But okay, whatever's clever.
To each their own. And we don't judge on this podcast. Hey, however you want to take your proceeds when you sell a home, that's your business. But we want to help you get to that point where you are at the closing table getting that wire of $400,000 or whatever, which I'm pleased to report, not that I've done the extensive research, BBL is a lot less than 400 grand. So
on that note, good people, we so appreciate you tuning in yet again. Looking forward to some more feedback on this MorEstate name.
Still don't have a name. The podcast without, maybe the podcast that has no name.
Right. She has no name. We have no name.
Or maybe it's just the working title podcast.
The working title. Okay. Perhaps. I'll be interested to see what the fans have to say.
I know, like, when my wife says something like that, like I'll think about it. Like, just say no, bro. Like, come on. You can say no.
I mean, we're friends, so I'll take it under advisement.
That's a no. Again, you want to share with the beautiful people out there how they can find you on social media, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure, guys. My Instagram handle is Mortgage Pilot. No, I do not have a license to fly planes, but I definitely am licensed to help you originate.
He will fly your arse to that closing table, though, and get you that home.
Yes.
Get you the funds.
We are here to land this mortgage plane, not the 757. What do y'all think? 2024, get some pilot license, maybe? Been working on my golf game, so maybe I'll add piloting to the list. And I need to probably, do you know a life insurance person? Because if I'm going to try and fly a plane, I might need to upgrade my life insurance. So maybe we need to have a life insurance person on here too. To help me out.
I don't know about all of that, but we can go ahead and cross Boeing off of our potential sponsors list, because after that, I don't think they're going to want to sponsor. Anyways, you can find me at Harvey Wurlitz on all of the different social
all the things
gatherings. Just go ahead and throw my name in your Google machine. You'll see my Instagram, TikTok.
Wow. TikTok.
That I actually did that on purpose. No, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. You can find me there. Again, leave a comment down below. We are still working on the title of this darn show, but we hope you enjoy it. We enjoy bringing it to you, sharing our thoughts and insights. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Mortgage Pilot out.